Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Tricky Fox. I had no real intention to ever do a commentary, but MatPat's latest film theory pissed me off. I always have been a Trekkie, so I noticed right away that he clearly did next to none research. Before I begin, I want to mention that I actually enjoy game and film theory a lot. I watch pretty much every episode of it. With that being said, let's begin.
It's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time, it's tricky. It's tricky.
Space, the final frontier.
These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise.
Your ongoing mission, to explore strange new worlds.
To seek out new life and new civilizations. To boldly go where
No
no
one has gone before.
This mantra boils down to one simple word: exploration. The Federation claims this exploration is only for acquiring knowledge and searching the cosmos, but take one look at history and you see a very different story. Exploration tends to occur with two different goals in mind. One, to claim as many resources as possible to benefit the home empire. And two, to spread that home empire, indoctrinating others under a single government and religion. Practically every single past exploration falls under these rules, from the expansion of the Roman Empire to British imperialism to the very foundation of the good old US of A. Christopher Columbus in 1492 didn't sail the ocean blue and discover America just to chill, meet some natives, and spend a few wampum on an I Heart Plymouth Rock coffee mug. No, sir! He claimed to land under European rule and forced Catholicism on all the indigenous people. Even the first explorations of space were fueled by Cold War fears. After Russia successfully launched Sputnik, America needed to establish a foothold in space before the Russians did it and started raining nukes down from above. It wasn't for education or discovery, it was to maintain dominance. That's only two examples. Historically, exploration has always sprouted from primal and selfish human needs. And speaking to point one of those 2 points, we already know for certain that the Federation is on the hunt for resources. There are multiple episodes throughout the original series, like MatPat and Friday's Child, where we see the Federation's mining colonies, as well as them competing with the Klingons for mining rights. Then what about point 2? Spreading the empire. Why would we think that the Federation is any different? Because they tell us?
Well, this is not exactly untrue. Any government is interested in gaining new resources. But I cannot agree with the second statement. Why? If you ever watch Star Trek, you should know about the Prime Directive. The Prime Directive forbids any Starfleet officer to meddle with any internal affairs of foreign civilizations. A Starfleet ship is also only allowed to make contact with civilizations that already developed warp technology, ensuring equal footing and possible negotiations. In other words, they are forbidden to indoctrinate others. It also prevents them to claim resources of certain inhabited planets. That being said, the Federation is interested in spreading. But here's the next thing. We are talking about the United Federation of Planets. While it has a central government, it is made up by over 100 different member worlds that govern themselves. It is a political and economic union of different civilizations, making it more similar to something like the European Union. While they do have a central government on Earth, they all still have their own governments of their home worlds. Let's take Vulcan for an example. Vulcan is one of the founding members of the Federation, yet still Vulcans have their own culture. And like the European Union, there are certain requirements to join the Federation. However, even if you're not part of the Federation, you can still be allied with them and trade with them. They have no problem with that, as such your theory is flawed from the get-go. But let's see how deep you dig yourself, MatPat.
But if you look beyond, Star Trek Beyond, if you look Star Trek beyond their words and start to see their actions, you see a completely different story. A story of fascism. Now, just so we're all on the same page, fascism is a system of government that controls all aspects of a citizen's daily life. Often it comes neatly packaged with your friendly neighborhood dictator. Some of the most famous fascist dictators in history include Hitler and Mussolini during World War II. And you know how well things worked out there. But then how is the Federation, this seemingly do-gooder organization, fascist?
Well, I would like to argue on that, but to be fair, I'm no expert, and describing the complete concept of fascism would take way too much time, so for the sake of argument, I will roll with your dumbed down definition.
Well, let's first take a look at what they control in the Star Trek universe. Transportation? Check. Just take a look at the vehicle lists of the Star Trek verse. They're all built by the Federation. The only non-Federation ships that we see throughout the series are those that belong to enemy alien species. If you're gonna want to travel the solar system, well then you're gonna have to talk to Big Daddy Federation to get some permission. Or just hop aboard a smuggler ship. Where's Han Solo when you need him?
The Wikipedia page you're showing is a list of Starfleet ships. And here's another fun fact. The Starfleet is not the Federation. It is the military of the Federation. So of course every ship on this list is a military vessel with a military designation. It doesn't account for private ships or ships of other species. And what about the enemy alien species thing? This is an outright lie. In every show they often end up helping non-Federation starships, and they often meet with them to trade or to negotiate. Not to mention that while Klingons were enemies in the original series and the movies, they were allies to the Federation after the events of Star Trek VI, making almost every Klingon ship we see in Next Generation an allied, non-Federation ship.
The Federation also controls communication and the flow of ideas. Every communicator is owned and controlled by the Federation. You can even clearly see the Federation's insignia inscribed on each one. Screw iOS versus Android, you're Federation or nothing.
You showed the communicator of a Starfleet officer. Again, the Starfleet is a military organization, making this communicator part of military equipment. Of course it shows the Starfleet insignia. And since you are using the reboot movies as evidence for your theory, I would like to remind you that the 2009 Star Trek movie featured a Nokia product placement. That's right, James Tiberius Kirk used a Nokia mobile phone to talk with his stepfather in that movie, so there still are different producers of communication devices around.
Then, by Star Trek The Next Generation, ships like the Enterprise D possess advanced computer systems that are capable not only of running most basic ship functions, but also of monitoring communications and the location of every crew member on board. And not only does the Federation control the flow of communication, but also its content. They own two of the most prevalent news programs in the galaxy, the Federation News Network and the Federation News Service.
Again, we are talking about a military organization. In case of an emergency, every officer is on duty, so it is very important that they can be located at any time. When it comes to moderating communications, well, yeah, they are capable of doing this, like the US government is capable of reading your emails. But the Starfleet usually won't do this unless they have a reason. Also, the Federation News Service is regarded as the most unbiased and professional news service in the Federation. It is also uncertain if there are any ties between it and the government, and might be simply a name as it originated within the Federation. So unless you have a clip to support this claim of media control, don't bring it up.
How about the justice and criminal court systems? Again, it's under the thumb of the Federation, and they use that power to cull the herd, using unilateral hearings to weed out anyone who dissents or is deemed as unfit. For instance, in the episode Galileo 7, we see Kirk directly disobey the orders of his High Commodore in order to save his crew, something heavily frowned on in Starfleet. The grudge lives on in a few stardates and episodes later, in the episode Court Martial, we see the Federation actively trying to get Kirk to resign, and when he refuses, trying to kick him off the ship in the first ever general court martial of a Starfleet captain, going so far as to hire a prosecutor who had a past personal relationship with him. They're making up the rules as they go along to make sure that Kirk gets kicked off.
Pop quiz, MatPat. Imagine yourself as part of the US Army. You disobey a very important order. Guess what happens? There's a very decent chance that you have to face a court martial. No, I think I never watched that episode in question and I'm not feeling like doing it. But according to the summary on Memory Alpha, said prosecutor is a real Shaw, a woman that once had a romantic relationship with Kirk. And as far as I can understand, she pressed a hard case on Kirk even though she was still on rather good terms with him. So if anything, she was unsuited as a prosecutor for the chance that she might have been biased in Kirk's favor.
But it's not just in the original series. After Kirk's failed mutiny in the 2009 Star Trek movie, there's no trial, no deliberation, no jury. Spock simply orders Kirk to be placed into a pod and jettisoned off into an icy planet. Justice here is determined solely by those given power by the Federation.
You said it yourself, after a failed mutiny. Of course there are consequences. The usual procedure would be to put him under arrest, but Spock thought that having him on board was a risk, and that it was an emergency situation, considering that the big bad just blew up Vulcan, and no other ship was in reach, he had to make a quick decision. Not to mention that the entire crew on that ship consisted of cadets, so probably no one had the guts to speak up. And again, the big bad just blew up Spock's home planet. So I do have my doubts that this decision was entirely rational. But the escape pod had everything Kirk needed to survive, and there was a Federation base on that planet as well. Something you don't mention. It's not like he was launched into nothing.
And what's more, there are no checks or balances to impede that power. In Into Darkness, Admiral Marcus develops long-range stealth torpedoes, constructs a secret mega warship, and organizes a warmongering plot against the Klingons. Those aren't feats Admiral Marcus did single-handedly. He was acting through Section 31, Starfleet Black Ops, something that required Federation funds and personnel to accomplish. Sure, Captain Kirk and the crew saw his actions as wrong and chose to fight against him, but then what about the rest of the Federation? Where were they in all of this? In Star Trek Into Darkness, Admiral Marcus, another Federation member, attempts to start a war between the Federation and the Klingons, all to further his own political reach and power.
You answered your question yourself later on. He went rogue. Of course the Federation government didn't know anything about his plans to start a war with the Klingons.
Additionally, in order to maintain control, fascists oppose any system in which citizens have power. As such, they despise capitalism, which is designed to give the common man democratic power through their spending. In fact, Hitler was determined to, quote, destroy this system under all conditions. You know the old saying, mo money, mo problems, no money, dictatorial rule.
Did you know that they also persecuted communists in Nazi Germany? Just let's say the economy of Nazi Germany was a little bit more complicated than capitalism must be destroyed. A rather interesting topic to be sure, but this is not the time to discuss it. However, fact is that Nazi Germany bloomed after Hitler took over, and people actually had more money to spend, which is one of the reasons people kept supporting him, so it kinda contradicts your point.
It's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time, it's tricky.
But you might be saying that this is all meant to create a utopian society, that mankind is working to create a universe beyond all wants and needs. But obviously they're not. Former members of the Federation routinely go rogue and attempt to assert their own dominance over civilizations. In Star Trek Beyond, the villain Krall is revealed to be Balthazar Edison, a disgruntled ex-Federation captain.
A former Federation captain that spent decades in isolation on an alien planet without any context to the Federation, using some weird alien technology to prolong his life that also mutated his body. You know, I think it's hardly surprising that he went a bit crazy.
In Star Trek Into Darkness, Admiral Marcus, another Federation member, attempts to start a war between the Federation and the Klingons, all to further his own political reach and power. No matter what the Federation may claim, humanity is still governed by the same selfish, basic motivations it's always been. Utopia? I don't think so.
One of the major themes in Star Trek is that mankind is flawed but always tries its best. But you are judging the entire Federation based on the actions of two crazy warmongers that went rogue. How does that work?
Even the ideology of the Federation directly mirrors fascism. Fascists emphasize the importance of the state over the individual. Per Adolf Hitler, quote, society's needs come before the individuals. Sound familiar?
Doctor, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
That's right. One of the most famous lines in Star Trek history promotes fascism.
Spock made this quote famous, you idiot. Kirk adapted it later on, fair enough, but it is based on Vulcan philosophy, and Vulcan philosophy is all about logic, and the logical thing to do is to save as many as possible, even if you have to sacrifice something. It is a moral dilemma that has nothing to do with fascism. So stop making Leonard Nimoy rotating in his grave, you moron.
But it doesn't stop there. Star Trek is littered with offhand comments by our supposed heroes endorsing the ideology. In Star Trek Beyond, Scotty tries to convince Jayla to join Starfleet by invoking the famous bundle of sticks proverb. A single stick breaks easily, but a bundle of sticks is unbreakable. Seems harmless enough, right? Except this simple phrase is the very root of fascist ideology. In fact, the word fascism actually derives from the Latin fasces, which translates to a bundle of sticks. In fact, the original symbol of fascism in Italy was, get this, a bundle of sticks. Mind blown.
To be fair, I didn't know this and it is quite interesting. But it doesn't prove anything, unless you're telling me that every cartoon that teaches children to work together is actually fascist propaganda. Not the time Star liked.
Oh yeah, and what happens when you dare speak out against the Federation? If you even so much as question their motivations. Just look at Star Trek Beyond's Krall. He claims that after voicing his displeasure with the Federation, he and his crew were then stranded on the dying planet. Now, you may think to yourself, why trust the word of a Star Trek villain? Can we really believe his words over the Federation? No way, right? Except, we've already seen the Federation do exactly what Krall claims. When Kirk dares to speak out against Spock, he's immediately exiled to an inhospitable planet. And very clearly, this is what the creators of the movie had in mind. Just look at what they say in this featurette on the character of Krall.
I wanted a character that is there to deconstruct the Federation's ideals, but to do it in a way where he has a very valid philosophy.
You make it sound like he was sent into some kind of exile. No, it was an accident. His ship, the USS Franklin, crash landed on an alien planet and he was unable to contact the Federation. He then believed that they abandoned him. They never punished him, but they made him a captain of a diplomatic ship. But even before he went crazy in isolation, he was a warmonger. He was displeased with the Federation because they made peace with the Romulans and ended a war. Does that sound like a reasonable guy to you?
So then, just what is the Federation up to? In the words of Spock,
An ancestor of mine maintained that if you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
and it's simply impossible that the Federation, a fascist organization that controls every aspect of its citizens' lives, that exiles anybody who dares question them, would explore the galaxies for purely benevolent purposes. Their mission statement, then, must be a lie, a facade. As we saw in World War II, fascists gain power through fear, building up anxieties in citizens against other groups or nations. The classic example here is Hitler and his crusade against people of Jewish descent. But now think about how the Federation always paints their enemy as aggressors or wrongdoers. With the Klingons, Romulans, and Cardassians, it's actually less scary if we talk about them, they all could just be responding appropriately to a fascist regime pushing across the galaxy. Remember, Star Trek is told through the eyes of the Federation, but you should always question the motives of the person telling you the facts so that you can get what's really going on.
Okay, you spin the narrative, cherry-picked some arguments while leaving out important details and ignored the context of many scenes. 80% of your claims are simply not true and you were unable to differentiate the Starfleet, a military organization, from the United Federation of Planets, a democratic political body that consists of more than 100 different species. You also mainly relied on the rebooted film series as evidence, even though you claimed you watched the entirety of Star Trek, but you barely used the original series and a bit of Next Generation to support your claims. Quite bad examples, I want to add. If you actually watched everything, you would have used Deep Space Nine to support this theory. Frankly, it has been ages since I watched Deep Space Nine. I hardly remember individual episodes, and I plan to rewatch it in due time. But what I do remember is that it deconstructs the Federation. Benjamin Sisko probably made more questionable decisions than every other Star Trek captain combined, and it showed everything that is wrong with the Federation. It is probably the darkest entry in the Star Trek franchise to date, and it deals heavily with politics. So you should probably check it out instead of watching theory videos. So anyway, do you want me to do more commentaries? Or do you want me to talk more about Star Trek? Let me know in the comments. I am Tricky Fox. Stay foxy.